What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I have yet another album review for you. Granted, this first week, or at least the first week that we're actually reviewing new albums, has been kind of slow. There was some more stuff that I definitely want to go over, and this was one that I had on my radar pretty early on when I saw it was announced. This is a band I've been meaning to check out, and actually going into it, I found out that it actually shares some connections with some really cool bands that I already like. So today we are going to go over the latest offering from Faithxtractor, Loathing and the Noose. This also comes out on the 10th of January on Redefining Darkness Records. This band formed in 2005 in Cincinnati, Ohio. This is their 5th album overall, and the first time I have actually sat down and listened to an album of theirs. I feel like I've kind of missed out on something really cool here. But again, this band shares some common threads with bands that I actually know, which I thought was really cool. They only have 2 members, one Zdenka Prado, who plays bass. She and Ash Thomas, who does vocals, guitars, and drums on here, were both in a band that I really liked called Estuary, which I think is still around. They're a really solid, more aggressive style melodic death metal band from, let's say, the mid-2000s, maybe late 90s too. I'd have to actually check, but I have 2 of their albums and I'm a big fan of them. I know that Ash Thomas is also in Shed the Skin and Crucified Mortals, and he's even spent some time in Acheron as well, so he's definitely got a pretty good pedigree as far as death metal goes. And that is exactly what this is. This is some just flat out kind of 90s death metal, I guess. It kind of started one way for me, and then as the album went on, I definitely heard a lot of other elements kind of getting woven into their overall sound. But right from the rip, I would say the first 3 tracks on here kind of instantly reminded me of Deicide, which is why I decided to pull this lovely shirt out. It's kind of thrashy, there's lots of blast beats, it's just very aggressive right out of the gate. The guitars have a really crunchy, dirty sound. I really dig the production on this overall. It's got a good raw sound, but it's also well mixed. Well, you get a constant battering of thrashy, chuggy riffs on here. There are some amazing tremolo harmonies on here, and they're utilized differently throughout the album. Right away you get more of the sinister ones. They're almost kind of bordering on atonal. The opening tremolo harmony almost feels like a slight nod to Dismember in terms of Override the Overture, which I think is one of the catchiest tremolos ever. Those melodies are woven well into the song. It stays aggressive, but you have this very sinister atmosphere to it. The vocals are roared and just ferocious sounding, and I was a little bit surprised it wasn't Zdenka doing the vocals, because she was the vocalist in Estuary. Not saying that Ash is doing a bad job, he's actually doing a really solid job on here, but I was a little surprised by that. While at its core, a good chunk of this material definitely reminds me of Deicide, there's notably more atmosphere. Well, Deicide is more kind of blunt force trauma, let's just hit you over the head with the riffs. Atmosphere is kind of a secondary thing. It's, mostly just about the riff work, how tight they sound, and Glenn roaring about how much he doesn't like Jesus. With this band, I think they're a little bit more creative with atmosphere, kind of maybe bordering a little bit on Vital Remains a bit. You get periodic breaks where you get whispers and some more melodic riffs every now and then. Fever Dream litanies in particular, I kind of noticed there was a little undertone of mellow death in there, but a more aggressive one, maybe intestine ballism a little bit more. But the first 3 tracks here definitely remained very aggressive, very in your face. And then it wasn't until Flooded Tombs where it kind of caught me off guard, and then the rest of the album really starts showcasing a little bit more the diversity of their sound. While Flooded Tombs comes out swinging, you get this good alternating drum pattern between blast beats and double time grooves and some really clever breakdowns in it. The riffs are just punishing as hell. There is a transition in it where it just hits the brakes harder than hell and shifts to almost Funeral Doom. It goes from Deicide's Legion all the way to Winter's Into Darkness in a split second, and it completely changes the vibe of the song naturally. And it goes beyond just the speed. Even the guitars kind of take on a different tone. They feel more reverby. They're kind of washed out. There's a lot more in the way of open space. The riffs constantly drone, and this is where the atmosphere really comes into play with these whispered, creepy sort of mutterings in the background. And I feel there are some synths on here just to add another layer of ambience in the background. It's such a drastic change in tone and style. Even the vocals kind of sound a little bit different. You get more drawn out, John McEntee style roars. And again, that sudden speed change, like there isn't even like a drum fill that really kind of, transitions into it. It just hits the brakes like, it was going like 95 on the expressway and just saw a cop. And this is the point where the album kind of like shifts around a little bit. Like it kind of opens up the playbook more than just like straightforward like 90s death metal. Ethos Moribund is possibly the most thrashy track on here, and it's not just like thrashy death metal. It honestly kind of leans almost to like blackened thrash mixed with a touch of death metal. You get this isolated opening of just these blazing fast riffs, and then it just kind of comes in with these like fast thrashy D beats. You get some cool crawling lead melodies on there that are quite tuneful, and like the whole song just kind of has like a more thrash metal vibe. Even when it comes down to the breakdowns and grooves, they kind of have those like stuttered kick patterns you would hear on like, Beneath the Remains and such. But imagine that with like Angel Corpse style riffs. Like, they're very angular, they're a little bit more technical, but they're oddly very tuneful, even though they're occasionally very dissonant. But it's that touch of black metal there that kind of gives it this like extra evil snarl that I really like. And in terms of the lead work on here, there's a lot of interesting variety because again, like this album kind of like shifts gears at points and gets a little bit off of at least what I thought they were going to be about. Of course, you have your squealy dive bombs and just insane shredding, but there's also like some really good melodic runs in terms of leads, and there's just some stuff in here that's more about like atmospheric harmonies and such. But I think the real strength of like the riff work in here in terms of like the hooks are, again, these tremolo harmonies, which again, they employ in different ways. They work differently in the thrashier songs than they do like the more like doom-laden or just more flat-out like sinister old-school death metal. Beholden to the Nightmare, though it is decidedly more like death thrash, there's some great tremolo harmonies in there once again that are just instantly hooky. Like the kind of like tremolo harmonies you've been probably listening to for years if you've been listening to death metal for, I don't know, like any longer than probably 5 years, I would say. Tried and true death metal hooks is pretty much what I'm getting at there. But again, as this album went on, there was definitely more coming out, like the song Caveats. Caveats is decidedly more dissonant. Like, honestly, when I looked at this album cover, I kind of fully expected a more like dissonant death metal listen. Like, you just look at it like, yeah, it's kind of got the black and white sort of like engraving sort of look, and it just kind of screams like, I am dissonant, I am atonal, I will conjure the devil. And while this is all heavy and sinister and evil and just, vicious as hell, but it didn't have that more like creepy sort of atonal, like almost like immolation style death metal that I was kind of expecting. But it wasn't until the track Caveats that I kind of really felt that. It's got way more atonal riffs, it's definitely more dissonant, there's more about the atmosphere. Hell, it even leads in with even more creepy whispers. It sounds like a choir of like possessed porcelain dolls, and then you get into these like twisting, descending, angular riffs. Again, it's very haunting and ominous. It kind of lays off the brutality for a little bit just to let the atmosphere breathe, and then it just beats you over the head with some savage riffs. And I like this shift on this song, particularly because I think it's integrated really well into what they do, because you still have like these really solid riffs on there. I do think that the transition on Flooded Tombs is, again, like a little knee-jerk, but again, I kind of like just how it just completely catches you off guard and then transitioning right back out of it towards the end to like kind of like the groovier, chuggier stuff that they were doing in the beginning of the song. Caveats kind of keeps that mood going, but again, it kind of still works in some really good catchy riffs. But honestly, probably one of my big standouts in here is the last track, Cerecloth Vision Veil. Longest song on the album, I believe it is around 7 minutes long, and honestly, this is like one of those closing tracks where they kind of show off a little bit of everything that they do. The opening to it is very melancholic, very dreary. Honestly, it was probably the first time in this album where I really kind of felt like a more somber vibe overall. And while it gets nice and rowdy and riffy and groovy towards the bridge of the song, like it's super aggressive and chuggy, I like this more somber mood and how they work their way back to it towards the back half of the song. There's multiple lead breaks in here, but there's one lead break in particular where they're kind of like just galloping and riffing it out that it kind of curtails into that transition back to the doom and then starts bringing in these absolutely dreary harmonies, like harmonies that would not be out of place on a My Dying Bride album. And it is depressive and dark and somber, and again, like a completely different vibe than what this band opened up with, and honestly kind of what they presented themselves with the entire album. That was something that I really liked about this album. I kind of had expectations based on, well, even like the album cover. And then once listening to it, I was like, all right, I get this kind of like thrashy death metal sound with definitely more of a dark, sinister atmosphere. But as the album went on, it definitely kind of opened up more. And it kind of shows up that this band has possibly a little bit more than just death metal going on here. Now, I still have yet to actually check out any of their other albums, so I can't really compare this to any of their other albums. But I really don't have like a lot of, like big ones. Like, yeah, it kind of sound like Deicide at first, which I really don't have a problem with. There are some transitions that I think are maybe like a little bit clunky, and sometimes you do get lost in the riff storm, but overall, I think this is a really solid album. So overall, I'm going to give this 4 stars. I dig this. I am more than likely ordering this, and I'm probably going to order some more Faithxtractor too. I feel like I should have been listening to this band for a while, especially since they're from Ohio. This album is packed full of just awesome riff work. I think the songwriting here is really solid. Again, some of the transitions are a little odd, but I kind of like that they kept you off guard, and there was like a legit surprise when, they kind of showed up, especially on Flooded Tombs. Like, I was not expecting a Funeral Doom style break in the middle of a very aggressive, very groove-laden song. Solid vocals, great lead work. Again, I think the production on here is pretty damn good too. Yeah, if you're a big fan of Vital Remains, I would say Monstrosity, maybe a little bit of Immolation, and probably some Deicide too. Definitely check this one out. This is a banger. So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also have memberships. They are only 99 cents, and we offer a members-only live stream where we chat about, I don't know, kind of whatever. We're going to put up a post and see what you guys want to talk about this time. Not sure when we're going to do it. We're still trying to figure out a time to shoot Motley Crue, but we're definitely going to do one this month at some point. We also have stupid emojis, which I don't know why I advertise that, but it's a thing we have. And this is the new way to support the channel if you guys like. We're trying to move away from Patreon. We also still have our store though, thrallsmetal.com. We have our t-shirts and hats there, and if you are interested in any of those, there's a link down below in the video description to thrallsmetal.com. And again, if you would like to become a member here, there's a join button down below as well. And of course, thank you guys so much for every bit of support you guys have given this channel. Again, we eclipsed 20,000 subscribers, which is still kind of surreal. Probably have said this many times when we've hit different marks, but believe me, it still blows me away every time that we hit those marks. I will be announcing the winner to the whole giveaway here soon too. I just got to do the whole randomizer thing. That'll probably be the next premiere after this video, so stay tuned for that. And outside of that, yeah, we are kind of back on our grind. New releases are going to start coming out, but we're also doing retro reviews, trying to get that Motley Crue ranking done so I never have to listen to Motley Crue again. Well, maybe Shout at the Devil, but not much else. Eventually going to get back to collection updates. I'm trying to get some more States of Metal stuff done too, and also working on some other segments that I haven't done in a while. So yeah, tons of content coming your way. And yeah, we're looking forward to another solid year of Thrall stuff. So once again, thank you all so much, and we will catch you later.